We are joined right now by Bill Wallander, a partner of the international law firm Vinson and Elkins. Thank you so much for being here.
Glad to be here.
You have shared a lot of great insight today about the whole energy sector and the oil prices. But before we get to that, let's talk about your firm.
Vinson and Elkins is one of the, if not the preeminent energy firm in the world, and we've done a tremendous amount of work in the M&A sector, the LLP sector, the upstream, midstream, downstream sectors. Full service firm along a number of other lines with litigation capability, restructuring capability, which I run for the law firm. It's one of the oldest law firms in Texas, approximately 625 lawyers worldwide. We've got offices in all the major cities of the United States, New York, Houston, Dallas, Washington, D.C., Austin, and all around the world, Moscow, London, Dubai, Abu Dhabi, Beijing, Tokyo, places like that. So our footprint follows energy, which is a driving force of the law firm in addition to all the other business that we do.
Okay, so we're going to back up just a little bit. From a consumer standpoint, everyone loves you drive up to the gas pump and the prices are nice and low, except for the folks in Texas. They're feeling this heat because that's their industry in Texas. That's where you're from.
Well, the consumers in Texas like the low price at the pump. The price at the wellhead is a challenge for the upstream space right now.
Right.
And there's a number of companies that are trying to deal with their cost side of their business, dealing with some of their financing sources and looking for other sources of equity and debt capital to work through the current challenge.
So on an international level, let's talk a little bit about the challenges right now with these prices. Now, a lot of folks knew this was coming. You knew this was coming, but did you know it was going to be this severe and this quick?
No. No, there's periodic adjustments in the price of oil. We had in the neighborhood of 50%, 1998, 2001, the 08-09 collapse was more severe than that. So these things do periodically happen. The speed with which this one happened, given the amount of investment in the sector, I think did surprise a lot of people. The price dropped down into the low 40s from roughly $105 over a 6-7 month period. That accelerated at the end. I do think caught a number of people off guard, and right now the price is hovering in at about $50 a barrel, which is indicative of something that is different this time than 08-09, which is this is clearly a supply issue in terms of what's being put out there and is in storage, et cetera, and so on, as opposed to more of a financial issue, I think, that was driven in 09 with Lehman and MF Global and some of the other players that faced financial challenges back then.
So with this being a supply issue, what would you say it's going to take to turn this around, and what do you foresee as far as a timeline?
Well, to resolve the supply issue, you have one of two choices. You either increase demand or supply has to be taken out. And the supply will be taken out ultimately if the prices don't sustain the operations of the companies that are producing, whether that's through negotiation out of court or court processes or whatnot. You will have the production capacity curtailed in order to get the supply-demand equation back in balance to have sustainable prices. As to increasing prices, it's hard to see that right now, given what we've heard from so many different people who are, looking at this, and the S&P and their forecasts and whatnot on pricing suggests that we're probably going to be here or maybe in the 60 space for some time to come.
So on a daily basis, how has your job really changed over the last couple of years? There's a lot of hand-holding and lots of different advice than you've had to really share in the past, it seems like.
Well, it's pretty constant with what we always do, because we're always advising various businesses or various creditor clients in different sectors of the economy. One thing that has changed in the last 3 or 4 months is there certainly is a lot more focus on the energy space, and there are more situations now that people are really looking at in terms of what is plan A, what is plan B, and how do we deal with it. That being said, there's still plenty of liquidity support for the business through the credit facilities. Most of the companies have hedging programs which are providing them with revenue, so we're not at a stage right now where the companies are without that revenue support to keep the businesses going. But there is a lot of focus on trying to plan for what happens when there are what they call the borrowing-based determinations, which can affect how much they can borrow, looking at hedge programs and things like that for that revenue source, and then trying to find a way to obtain alternative liquidity sources to get over the hump, so to speak. And that might be taking on new equity capital, it might be taking on new debt capital if it's available, and if it is available, that offers an opportunity. If it's not available, then some more difficult questions have to be asked, and it increases the risk of prospective potential in court proceedings.
In this sector, you don't really see a whole lot of mergers, but do you see any of the smaller companies going by the wayside as a result of this?
It's hard to say. I suspect there will be some acquisitions by companies that are stronger right now, but how those acquisitions are priced and how they're effectuated might be a factor. If the company simply has too much debt on it, then to effectuate an acquisition or a merger without a court process means you have to pay full price for all liabilities, et cetera, either by assumption or by paying them off, and whether the market will trade into that remains to be seen.
This is going to be very interesting to watch over the next couple of years. Well, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.